All right. Call the meeting to order. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now invocation, Reverend Jack Taylor.
Almighty Father, we come before you this evening, Lord God, and we praise you. We thank you, Lord, for the blessings that you have given us, and we thank you, Lord, for our community. Lord God, I ask that you would be with our government officials. For the ones that are leaving, Lord, I thank you for their willingness to serve and how they have looked after us. And I ask you, God, to be with the newly elected officials, that you will speak to them, that you will guide all of them with wisdom and discernment. Lord, as a community, we are responsible also. Help us to reflect your love to one another. Help us to support our officials. And help us, Lord, to look out for those that are less fortunate. God, thank you for this time. Watch over us now. Give us your hope and your peace. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jeff. Just a couple of quick statements here, normal announcements, but I certainly hope that in the months and years to come that this board will listen and will heed a lot of what the citizens have been talking about, and that is, I'm speaking primarily of making sure that we could get this greenway finished that we've been working on for years. And also, too, there's the issue downtown of the trestle project, and so that whereas that in itself is going to find its own solution, but a lot of folks in this town have certainly expressed their opinion that it would be good if we could go ahead and reinstate within the business district a 32-foot height limit on the buildings. We still have plenty of area around the town of Black Mountain to build as big buildings as we wish. But that would be a good thing. Next, Ryan, have you got something?
Absolutely. And it's my privilege tonight to award a recognition of service and some proclamations to our members here. So if I could have Mayor Sobel join me up front, please. And it's my honor to read this proclamation for Mayor C. Michael Sobel. Whereas the town of Black Mountain is always appreciative of those who serve for the betterment of the town, and whereas C. Michael Sobel has dedicated 14 years of service to the town of Black Mountain as Alderman and Mayor, and whereas C. Michael Sobel rendered during his term of office valuable services to the town of Black Mountain and the citizens thereof, and whereas it is fitting that the town of Black Mountain shows its appreciation when one has rendered such valuable services. Now, therefore, be it hereby proclaimed by the Board of Aldermen of the town of Black Mountain that C. Michael Sobel is hereby acknowledged as having been a good, loyal, and faithful public servant of the town of Black Mountain. That this proclamation expresses the deep appreciation on behalf of the citizens of the town of Black Mountain for the valuable services which he has provided to the town. That this proclamation is presented to C. Michael Sobel, and a copy of the same shall be placed within the records of the town of Black Mountain. Proclaimed this the 11th day of December, 2017. Michael. these for you as well, this plaque.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And now if I can ask Alderman Showers to join me up here. Carlos, we thank you for your service, and it's my honor to read this proclamation. Whereas the town of Black Mountain is always appreciative of those who serve for the betterment of the town, and whereas Carlos L. Showers has dedicated 8 years of service to the town of Black Mountain as Alderman, and whereas Carlos L. Showers is the second African American to hold office in the town of Black Mountain, and whereas Carlos L. Showers rendered during his term of office valuable services to the town of Black Mountain and the citizens thereof, and whereas it is fitting that the town of Black Mountain show its appreciation when one has rendered such valuable services. Now, therefore, be it hereby proclaimed by the Mayor and Board of Aldermen of the town of Black Mountain that Carlos L. Showers is hereby acknowledged as having been a good, loyal, and faithful public servant of the town of Black Mountain. That this proclamation expresses the deep appreciation on behalf of the citizens and the town of Black Mountain for the valuable services which he has provided the town. That this proclamation is presented to Carlos L. Showers, and a copy of the same shall be placed within the records of the town of Black Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next is citizen comment. Marilyn Sabansky.
Unfortunately, this reinforces the nickname Carl Bartlett gave me of Bag Lady. Good evening, everyone. It's coming up quickly, Rainbow Recycling's 10th annual holiday recycling event. Using clips from last year's event to illustrate, here's a short video with the basic information.
Marilyn, was you entitled Halloween Wintry Night?
Excuse me?
Is it entitled Wintry Night?
No.
Keep going, Marilyn. We're gonna.
Okay. The kinds of things that are collected at this event are illustrated as such. Some of them are obvious, of course: bubble wrap, the styrofoam air pillows, brown paper, foam sheeting, peanuts. So these are all items that we collect. And there are 3 basic how-to things to remember. 1, leave nothing attached or stuck on the packaging. That means no tape, no paper glued on, also no grease. The next thing is bag different items separately, so that the bubble wrap would get bagged separate from the styrofoam, separate from the other items. This makes it much easier for us to deal with a whole truckload of materials. And the third thing is be sure that bags are secured tightly, especially the peanuts and any small materials, because you can imagine in wintry conditions and sometimes wind what a dilemma that is for us if they go flying. In addition to those packaging items, we also accept Christmas light strands. These in larger sizes. If the bulbs are larger than this mini size, please remove them first. If businesses have large quantities, please call us in advance about them. This event is free for all recyclers, regardless of residence. However, we do ask for $1 per bag gas donation for styrofoam. This year, it has to be shipped all the way up to Radford, Virginia, which is 3 hours away, so we especially could use that assistance. Flyers are available at the library, at the chamber. They'll be on our website. They'll be posted all around town. Oh, and I forgot to say, the packaging material is available to anyone free. First come, first serve. So regardless of what you need for packing, if you're an artist, come and get it. So once more, we have it ready?
the link's broken.
I don't think we're going to be able to find it, Marilyn,
Okay.
but you keep talking and we'll make sure we put it on our Facebook page and put it on social media too, and we'll add to that.
Okay, so it's just a quickie that shows clips from last year and the basic information, the day, which is Saturday, the date, which is December 30th, and the time, which is 10 to 1, and the location is at Hopi's, right at the end of the parking lot near the highway. You'll see it very clearly with our banner and a big sign that says Styrofoam. And if there's need for a snow date, or if it's excessively windy that day, the following Saturday, same time and same place. Please come out and recycle the materials you no longer need and pick up any that you do. Thank you.
Marilyn, thank you again. There are times when we receive awards and recognitions and proclamations for things that we do, and yet there's a lot of folks in the valley that never do get that official recognition. But yet put forth probably a lot more effort than most of us up here on the board have done. And Marilyn certainly is representative of that. And thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. Matt, consent agenda.
Yes, sir. So you've got minutes from November 9th, November 13th, December 4th, and August 10th. You've got your capital project fund ordinance amendment for the Tomahawk Stream stabilization. Basically, and the next budget amendment goes with that. But we had budgeted $147,000 for this project, but we didn't end up spending that much. And so we need to amend our project fund to reflect what we actually spent, which is $92,150, and we brought in what we received from the North Carolina Water Resource Grant plus the town matching funds in the amount of $119,575. So basically, the town matching funds of $27,425 are funds that we are not going to expend. And so we need to amend the project fund that goes with the stream bank stabilization, which you may have seen from 9th Street to Laurel Circle, coming through the golf course from holes 3, 4, and 5, and we'll continue that project as we go forward, starting at number 10. Your next item on there actually reflects the amount of $27,425, which is the amount of the town's match that is not being utilized for that project currently. It will go back into the general fund to balance out the amount that we did not end up spending for that portion of the project. We'll obviously continue to move forward with that project. And then you've got a budget amendment to reflect the FEMA reimbursement for the Party Rock fire. We had over 600 man hours and 200 engine hours during that period. And I would point out, too, that this is combined with efforts of over 1,000 firefighters from all over the state, along with the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and many other organizations. This is, of course, the fire near Chimney Rock that was devastating for the area. And so this is a reimbursement in the amount of $30,820 for the services that the town provided at that time. I think, and that is your consent agenda for tonight.
Okay. Don't see any unfinished business. Now we move into the swearing in of the.
Make a motion.
Oh, the motion. Okay. You gonna make a motion?
So moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move on into the organizational part. Swearing in.
That's right. Now we'll call on Steve Cogburn. I think. Oh, there he is, and he's going to start swearing people in. Angela will help him. Maybe or no? Maybe Steve knows what he's doing. That's right. And we'll start with Mayor-elect Don Collins.
Okay.
I think you're welcome to use mine. I know, man.
That's a Bible.
It is old.
Yes. Thank you. So it is my honor and privilege to be here this evening to do this oath for you.
Okay. All right. You will need to raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible, and I will read this, and as I
finish it, you'll simply give an affirmation, okay? I, Donald S. Collins, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution, laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as mayor of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina, so help me God.
So help me God, I swear.
Congratulations. Gee, that was quick.
I know.
This is a special honor and privilege for me since I see this gentleman every day and understand what he does every day. So, yeah, it's my honor, and I see you have the big helper here.
That's right.
Olivia, are you going to help? Okay. You'll raise your right hand, sir. I, Matthew Ryan Stone, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Alderman of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina, so help me God.
I do, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jeremy Kaniki, that's that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right, Jeremy, if you want to come forward. You have someone that wants to stand with you, or are you going to do this all by yourself?
I guess I'm doing it all by myself.
Well, you certainly can do that. If you will,
Please.
you can use the Bible, you can affirm, but your left hand needs to be on your Bible and the right hand, and just simply give me an affirmation. Okay, sir? I, Jeremy Kaniki, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution, laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina, and that to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Alderman of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina.
I swear.
Congratulations.
Hang out for 1 minute.
All right. The next item on the agenda is appointment of the alderman to replace the unexpired term ending in 2019. Do I hear a motion for nomination?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate, oh, forgive me, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Carlos Showers.
Any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion, I have a suggestion also. I would like to nominate.
I'm sorry, we could take one nomination at a time. We're asking for discussion right now on this one. We can't have two or three, partner. I know,
Okay.
we go one step at a time.
Oh, okay, okay.
So again, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. All those opposed? Carries 4-0. 3-0.
4.
No, 4-0, yes.
4-0.
4-0. All righty.
Okay, so then,
Congratulations, Carlos.
then we swear him in, right?
Yep.
Term. Without a name on it? Okay. Yeah.
Do you have anyone that's going to stand with you? Very well. Get a plaque and then do another. Swear to put punishment. Privilege, sir. I, Carlos L. Showers, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the constitutional laws of the United States. That I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof. That I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as Alderman of the town of Black Mountain, North Carolina.
Swear, I will.
Congratulations, sir. And I'd like to thank the town for the opportunity to do this. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, next on our agenda is the appointment of the vice mayor. Do I hear a nomination for the appointment of vice mayor for the town of Black Mountain?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Alderwoman Maggie Tuttle for vice mayor.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. 5-0. Congratulations there.
Thanks. I would like to make a comment. I'm counting on you staying healthy and wise. I will leave the wealthy off. I'm counting on you staying with us.
We'll do our best. Well, next, I'd like to recognize our public officials that have graced us with their presence, and I truly say that with glad heart. Mr. Cogburn, of course, who's gone, but Ellen Frost and Mike Fryer, both of our county commissioners from District 2 is here. I'd like to thank them for being here. Jerry Behan, mayor of Woodland, is here. And Mandy Stone, who is our county manager here. I'd like to thank her for being here. Let's give these folks a big hand. And now with that, we're going to take a brief recess. 5 minutes. Everybody be ready to go in 5 minutes. Okay, next on our agenda is item F, the appointment of representatives and alternates to represent the town of Black Mountain on boards and committees of outside agencies. Black Mountain Center for the Arts. Do I hear a nomination? Call for nomination.
I would like to nominate Matt Settlemeyer for Center for the Arts.
I'll be glad to do that.
Okay.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for we've got a nomination. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Approves 5-0. All right. We also need to have an alternate member. Do I have a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Maggie Tuttle as the alternate for the Black Mountain Center of the Arts.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Miss Maggie.
Again, stay healthy and wise.
All right. The Black Mountain Swannoa Chamber of Commerce Executive Board. We have a, do I get a nomination for our member?
I'd like to nominate Carlos Showers as the member.
All right, we've got a nomination. We call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 5-0. Now we have a nomination for appointment to serve as the alternate member. Do I have a nomination?
I nominate Jeremy Carnegie.
Jeremy.
All right, we have a nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Land and Sky Regional Council Board of Directors. We have one board appointment and one alternate. Do I have a nomination for the board appointed full-time member?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Larry Harris.
We have a nomination. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0. Now I'm asking for a nomination for the alternate member.
Before I nominate her, I'm going to ask, because Maggie, would you be willing to do that? You have been serving, and so if
Yeah.
you're willing to do that, that
Yeah.
would be great.
I will.
The reason, Mr. Mayor, is that, I'm chairing that board now, so that
Right.
Maggie can come when it's possible. That works well.
Okay. I have a nomination of Maggie Tuttle. All in favor, give me an aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Maggie Tuttle 5-0. All right, the MPO Board of Directors. We have one board appointment and one alternate.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Alderman Ryan Stone.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0. Can I have a nomination for the alternate member?
I'd like to nominate Alderman Larry Harris.
We have a nomination. Call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. And Mr. Mayor, just to notify the public, again, that I have a seat on the board and have a vote, but I'm able to vote for the town of Black Mountain should Alderman Stone not be there. So I can go either direction on that.
Good deal. All in favor then was All right, 5-0. All righty. The French Broad River MPO Technical Coordinating Committee, TCC.
Mr. Mayor, what, just a point of clarification between the TCC and the NPO Board of Directors?
Yeah, Alderman Showers, that the TCC is generally a staff level discussion of transportation issues, where the NPO board is the voting is the elected officials in the voting board. So generally, and as a matter of fact, when Jessica Trotman was hired as the planning director, you actually appointed her to the TCC. But I'd like to have a clean slate and start with the organizational meeting tonight and do it and just do it again. But yes, not generally, always the TCC is staff affiliated, and the NPO board is elected official.
Right.
With that in mind, I would nominate Jessica to return to that position.
We have a nomination. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, 5-0. Now we have to nominate a alternate. Now, can I have a nomination?
I'd nominate Matt Settlemeyer.
We have a nomination. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0. MSD Board. Can I have a nomination?
Mr. Mayor, I would nominate Bob Watts, who's served capably in that role before, and I think he'd be a great person to return to the MSD Board.
Couldn't agree with you more. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approved 5-0. Asheville Regional Housing Consortium, we need a board appointment and one alternate.
And I would remind the board again, that is generally considered a staff level discussion, and so we've generally appointed the planning director for that position and staff in those roles. But I would point out that for all of these meetings, these are all open meetings to the public, to any board member, and to anybody from the public. That I think that's true of all of them, but I know that's true of certainly of the MPO and Land of Sky and the Regional Housing Consortium. Those are all open public meetings, and anybody is welcome to attend those. This is just who represents the town and as ongoing for voting purposes.
Thank you. All right, do we have a board appointment?
Yeah, nominate Jessica Trotman.
We have a nomination. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, carries 5-0. All right, we have an alternate position that we need to fill, and I'd like to call for a motion for the alternate position.
Go ahead. Maybe we can do it in unison. I'd like to nominate Jeremy Konechny. Put you to work.
Okay. All right, we have a nomination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, 5-0. All right. Our next is adoption of the schedule of the Board of Alderman agenda workshop and regular sessions for 2018. Do I hear a motion to adopt the 2018 schedule of regular meetings as presented?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
The filing of the 2017 Buncombe County municipal election results. Do I hear a nomination to enter into...
A motion to accept.
I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to accept the Buncombe County municipal election abstract of voters and the minutes as part of the town's record?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's 5-0. All righty. We're coming into then the planning board nominations. We have one vacancy, an unexpired term ending in June 30th, which is of next year.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
A call for nomination.
Mr. Mayor, I'd nominate Mr. Lee Scott Reed.
We have a motion of Lee Scott Reed. Call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
4-1. Mr. Scott Reed is approved. Zoning Board of Adjustments.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate
Well,
Pam Pauley.
Let me call for it, Carlos. I'm calling for the for nominations.
Also, just this is the third. This is the third alternate.
Third alternate.
Seat, not a sitting. This is the third alternate.
Matt, I'm sorry, Mayor, to interrupt you there.
Mm-hmm.
Just a question for a point of order. If there are, can we make more than one nomination and then vote on them separately after? If there are other board members that wish to nominate someone else?
Nope.
Or is that?
Well, you have two. The way you have generally handled nominations is somebody makes a nomination, you vote. If it is approved, it's approved. If it fails, then you move to the next one. There are other mechanisms for doing it, but that's the way you've done it. One at a time.
I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I now call for a nomination for the Zoning Board of Adjustment on the alternate vacancy.
I think we'll just do that for Pam Pauley.
Okay, we got a nomination for Pam Pauley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that was 5. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Greenways Commission. We have one vacancy, unexpired term ending June 30th, 2020. Do we have any nominations?
Mr. Mayor, I'd nominate Jennifer Billstrom.
Any discussion?
Jennifer Billstrom. Billstrom.
Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Carries 4-1. All right, at this time, we're going to have citizen comments that is, it pertains to new business only, is the only thing that we'll be discussing, is the new business, which is on our agenda here, the packets that y'all have been looking at. So, do we have anybody who'd like to come to the podium and speak concerning the new business? Hearing and seeing none, then I'll ask for our auditor's report by Gould Killian and the CPA group.
Yeah. So I'll call on Travis Keever to give you a overview of the financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board. Thanks for letting us be here again tonight. Thanks for letting us serve as your auditor. for FY17. As Matt said, we've completed the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2017, and have issued the CAFR towards the end of October. Special thanks starting off with the Dean and the staff of the Finance Department for the hard work and cooperation in completing the audit. As usual, all the town staff was incredibly responsive and accommodating and showed a tremendous level of professionalism in working their way through our audit, and we appreciate that very much. It made the process very smooth. My presentation is going to be brief, and it'll mostly cover the 2 audit reports that we issue that are included within your comprehensive annual financial report. I'll also cover the board communication letter that we issue, and we'll give a few financial highlights as well. So the 2 opinions that we issue, they're both in the CAFR. The first one is up near the front of the CAFR. It's an opinion on the financial statements themselves. We issued an unmodified or a clean opinion, which means we believe that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The second opinion we issue is in the back of the CAFR in what's called the compliance section. It's a report on internal control over financial reporting in accordance with government auditing standards. As part of this report, we reported no material weaknesses in internal control, and we reported no issues with compliance with laws and regulations that would have a material effect on the financial statements. It's important to keep in mind with this report that we did not perform a full internal control audit. We only tested and reviewed internal controls to the extent that it was necessary to plan and perform our financial statement audit. We did this through walkthroughs of key processes, observing transactions in process. We tested samples of past activity and conducted interviews with staff members. We hope you'll take the time to look through the CAFR. It's the most exciting 120 pages you'll read, and don't hesitate to contact us if there's anything in there where you need clarification on or if something doesn't make sense. The second document that we issued is the required auditor communications. It communicates certain information about the auditor's responsibilities and the scope of our audit. Just a couple of highlights from that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. We noted no transactions for which there's a lack of authoritative accounting guidance or that don't conform to accounting standards. Certain elements of your financial statements are always subject to estimate. Some of the more sensitive estimates that affect your financial statements include depreciation methods and useful lives of assets, allowances for uncollectible receivables, and actuarial estimates used to estimate liabilities that arise from the various post-employment benefit plans that the town participates in, such as the local government employees retirement system and the law enforcement officer special separation allowance. In next year, in FY18, there'll be one more added to that list. The state is divvying up the responsibility via the state health plan for retiree health benefits, and that number will show up on the town's financial statements as well, the town's share of that liability. That number is probably going to be the biggest liability you have. It will be on the financial statements. It doesn't change anything about the town's benefit offerings, obviously. It just puts it on paper. Now, that's a new accounting standard that's coming out that we'll have to comply with. There were no material audit adjustments made during the audit, and we encountered no difficulties in dealing with management or staff. As I mentioned before, the whole process was very smooth this year. Also, as we do every year, we make recommendations here and there regarding ways to strengthen the controls and implement best practices that we see elsewhere. But in our opinion, nothing that we saw rose to the level of a reportable deficiency. We did discuss with management a couple of things. We made a couple of recommendations regarding compliance with the required process of pre-auditing contracts and purchase orders, as well as implementing a stronger process relating to management review of customer account adjustments in water billing. And I believe Dean's already addressed both of those points, and he can talk more about those if he chooses later on. A couple of highlights from the financial statements. There's a summary of general fund revenues on the screen. The top 3 general fund revenues is very similar to most other towns. Ad valorem tax made up about 47% of your revenues, a little over $3.8 million. That was an increase of about $30,000 over FY16. Other taxes and licenses was $1.6 million. It's a small increase of about $18,000. This is primarily local option sales tax distributions. Sales and services was $1.1 million. That was an increase of about $60,000 or 5%. The primary revenue in this line item is fire protection services that are paid to the town by Buncombe County, and also parks and recreation revenue. The majority of that $60,000 increase came from the Carver Center, increased rentals at the Carver Center. The other column consists of grants, permits and fees, and investment earnings. The largest amounts here is building permit revenue of about $320,000 and PAL bill revenue of about $240,000. On the expenditure side, the top three, again, like most towns in North Carolina, public safety was number one. That's pretty typical. Your public safety, you spent almost $4 million. That was an increase of about $600,000 or 17%. Of course, this includes police, fire, and building permits. That increase was a little skewed in FY17 due to a large deposit that was made on the fire truck. So that's why the increase was so large in FY17. General government expenditures were $1.1 million, which was a decrease of about $60,000. This includes administration, governing board, and expenses related to maintaining town buildings. And public works was a little over $1 million, which was a small decrease of about $20,000. And that is primarily the streets-related expenditures. And again, the other column includes sanitation of about $730,000, debt service of about $210,000, and parks and rec expense of about $925,000. The next slide talks about total fund balance and available fund balance, shows a trend over the last 4 years. Fund balance available is a statutory calculation that the LGC, Local Government Commission, uses in North Carolina to measure the health of the unit and the ability to meet ongoing obligations. It's calculated roughly by taking the total cash on hand at June 30 and subtracting out the current liabilities, such as accounts payable. As you can see, there's a general positive trend for both total and available fund balance over the last 4 years. Took a little bit of a dip in FY17, again, primarily because of that down payment on the fire truck. This shows that same number, fund balance available, as a percentage of net expenditures. The LGC requires that municipalities maintain fund balance available at 8% of expenditures. That's roughly 1 month worth. The town tries to operate with available fund balance at a minimum of 30%, and you're currently at 44%. Now, if you notice on that graph, the population group average is up in the 70s, whereas the town is more similar with all municipalities. Your population group average, the way the state breaks it up, is municipalities with populations between 2,500 and 10,000. So you guys are on the high end of that population group, and the really, really small towns, the ones closer to the 2,500, tend to run a much larger fund balance. So that skews that number a little bit. The town, of course, is running really similarly to all other municipalities in North Carolina, the larger ones, which is shown by the red line. The next slide shows outstanding debt as of June 30th. As you can see, there's a general downward trend in the debt balance. That's as a result of a few loans being paid off early, as well as less reliance on debt to finance large expenditures in recent years. And that's shown, the blue line is debts that are paid out of the general fund. The gray line is debts paid out of the water fund. And the final slide I have is a summary of the water fund. As you can see, from 2016 to 2017, working capital, which is essentially current assets minus current liabilities, it decreased a little bit. That was basically due to the cash balance decreasing, which was a result of some larger than usual capital asset purchases in FY17. But on a positive note, you can see the operating results are positive. You had operating income of $117,000 and operations generated cash flow of about $400,000. So definite positives there. That is all I had. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. And thank you again for letting us serve as your auditors for FY17.
Okay, first, do I have a motion to accept the auditor's report?
So moved.
All right. Any discussion? Any questions? I do have one. You talked about our general fund dipped a little bit in 2017, and you said that was because of the purchase of the fire truck. The cost of that fire truck was what?
The total truck, I'm not sure. The deposit that got paid in FY17, I think it was about $425,000.
So, but the dip that we had was not $425,000 worth. It was smaller than that. But that's the reasoning for the slight dip in the general fund balance was because we paid cash for the fire truck.
Yes.
And if you'll remember too, we had a capital reserve fund that built that up over time. So
Right.
It's been moving up. I think some of our reserve funds also tie into the.
Correct. That capital
fund
reserve fund is consolidated into that general fund
Right.
balance. So that's money you guys had set aside already.
So when you add more money to your reserve fund, then it reflects against your fund balance, or at least is that right?
It's really no effect.
Okay.
So yeah, it's when you add money to the reserve fund, the way it's shown in the financial statements, the reserve fund is part of the general fund. So yeah, it's really no effect.
Just paying off what debt we paid off in the last fiscal year, that serves to reduce some of the fund balance.
It does reduce fund balance.
So, we've been aggressively paying down debt, so that's also as good a reason to point out, we're pressing Dean as hard as we can. But that's, between the two.
Yes, sir.
Between the two. And then between those two, and even keep it as stable as it has been, it's because of good solid revenue. What sales tax is up, what county sales tax, the portion that comes to us, and of course permits and so forth. What, 100,000 or so more than prior year?
Yep, and been doing really good.
And everything else relatively stable because we left the tax rate. This budget, this past fiscal year, or am I wrong? Am I a year off? Reflects. We maintained the adjusted tax rate and kept basically cut the taxes back.
The tax rate will be in the next.
We got the next year up. Of course, that shouldn't make that much difference because we were revenue neutral and a tiny bit below revenue neutral.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what shows in this CAFR we issued was the 2016
right.
tax valuation. Yeah.
Either way. So we should be. So, and generally speaking, then we would be our tax revenue from property taxes in the coming budget year would be very similar, except for new buildings brought on. But that's actually another year off at that, isn't it?
It was timing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Just to give kudos once again to this town staff for their attaining good numbers as far as dealing with their departments and the hard choices they had to make at budget times. And we've come a long way in the 8 years since I've been on the board. Things look a whole lot better. This board, the town staff, the citizens, everyone should be very, very appreciative of the gains we've made, and thank you folks for what you've done.
Right. Well, I would add another thing too, that I know Matt and Dean very much strive to do this, and of course we also need to continue to encourage them in that regard, and that's just the need for transparency in what we do. We're not we're obviously not even if you wanted to compare us to the county, the county is just a much more complex and significantly larger operation. But be that as it may, and you could speak to it, I know, Travis, because you've had experience in both fronts. But it's complex enough running a $10 to $13 million budget in Black Mountain, and I do think, that we. I guess I'd put it this way. I think that both our finance manager and assistant town manager and our town manager really strive for transparency and everything, and I think we do as well, and we have to continue to do that.
All righty. Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approved 5-0. And next, we have our finance quarterly update from Mr. Dean Luby.
Mayor and Board, it's an honor to speak to you again tonight. Travis actually talked about some of the things I was going to mention, so unfortunately you're not going to hear that much from me tonight. But I'm going to talk to you about two sets of numbers, the year-end numbers that he just discussed, and then I also am giving a quarterly financial report, and it just so happens that I'm doing both of those things tonight. So my quarterly financial report is from July 1st until September 30th, the first quarter of fiscal year 18. But I'm going to start with talking about some of the year-end numbers, and some of this is similar to what Travis talked about, but maybe my thoughts on it, I might bring up some things that he didn't. So this, first of all, is a trend basis for our building permit revenue, and you can see that that is just growing very nicely in the last 8 or 9 years, and that's although $330,000 in a $9 million general fund budget is not a huge percentage. That really bodes well for the town, because in some ways that's going to turn itself into property value, which then gets taxed, which then turns into the ad valorem tax revenue. So we've been very pleased with that, and in fact, we're probably on pace this year to have another record year in fiscal year 18 if the year keeps up as it has. Next here is 6 or 7 years worth of general fund balance, and Travis just talked about what was it, assigned fund balance? No, available fund balance, I'm sorry. Available fund balance is, that's sort of a North Carolina local government term that they like to use. And this is more of a national term which shows up in the CAFR. And unassigned fund balance is a total that a lot of you people are involved with. That's the blue bar, and it is sort of trending up. Unfortunately, unassigned fund balance is not exactly the same as available fund balance. I could explain the differences, but generally available fund balance is going to be a little bit higher all the time. The policy that we set a couple years ago was we said our unassigned fund balance needed to be 30% of total general fund expenditures. And this year we're at 35%. The previous year we were at 39%. Now, the local government commission, they have a policy that says the available fund balance needs to be at least 8%. They're kind of similar, but they're also sort of different. And I'm happy if anybody ever wants to come and talk to me, I can explain the differences. But I just want to, our policy, the 30% is for the unassigned fund balance. And I may actually get to this a little bit later with some slides to explain the differences. This is the debt due, and I'm combining both the water fund and the golf fund, and the board we've been great about not taking out new debt. Now we may be taking out some debt on this new building we're thinking about, but the debt has gone down, and that's really given the town a lot of flexibility when it comes to capital purchases and some other opportunities, because the amount we're spending on debt has gone down considerably, so that's been good for the town. This is a total cash and investment slide by quarter. I break it down in the quarters ending in September, December, March, and June. Most of the revenue that the town gets in is pretty standard throughout the year. The exception to that is our biggest revenue, the tax revenue, which about 80% of our tax revenue comes in November, December, and January. So if I had a January month up there, the end of January is when we would peak in our cash holdings. You can see our lowest point is probably in about October, because that's when people start paying their taxes. late October, November, then December and January, it kind of heats up. But that just sort of shows our spending in the general fund. We have a budget of $8.5 million. That's about $700,000 a month. And we spend that pretty uniformly by month. Half of that is really payroll. It's the salaries and benefits for the employees. But the revenues that we get in are not quite as uniform, and this slide sort of shows that. Before we go on to this, well, we'll go on to the quarterly slides now. So now we're talking about the first quarter of fiscal year 18, and I have 2 years worth of information here. I have the current first quarter of fiscal year 18, and then I also have the first quarter of fiscal year 17. 17's in the green, fiscal year 18 is in the blue. And like our major revenues, as Travis talked about, are taxes, and then the next one is sales tax. Sales tax, our sales tax has increased by about 5% a year in the last 6 or 7 years, which is just great, and it's really helped out the town a lot. Now this last year it was almost flat. Sales tax, we share whenever anybody buys anything in Buncombe County, they pay a 7% tax. Of that 7% tax, Buncombe County and Asheville collect about 96% of it. The other 4% gets divided between us, Weaverville, Biltmore Forest, and Woodfin, maybe a couple other small places that I'm not remembering. But our portion of that 7% is about 1.5%. Our portion actually went a little bit down this year because of the fact that Buncombe County and Asheville both put their tax rates above revenue neutral, whereas our board went a little below revenue neutral. So our little piece of the pie went down a tiny bit more, and right now we're depending on that sales tax to continue to rise every year, but that's something that I'll be keeping an eye on to see how that behaves. We get paid a sales tax payment. We got one today from the state. We get it on the 10th of each month. It actually runs 3 months behind. That's why you don't see any numbers in there for the first 3 months. When I come up 3 months from now, I'll have the first quarter recorded. You can see building permits if you go down a little bit. We're already at 122,000 in the first quarter. I do not expect us to continue going at that speed, but I do feel confident that we're going to have a healthy number there. There's some other numbers about expenditures. First of all, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about this, but towards the bottom you can sort of see like our personnel costs were at 22% through the first quarter. That's because it just so happened that only 6 payrolls hit. When I come back in 3 months, we'll be pretty close to probably 50% because we'll have 7 payrolls hit in the current quarter that we're in. Let's see. On the next page we have water and golf. The water fund, we really sell more water during the summertime than we do in the winter, so we're already at 28% of budget on water sales. There's not really, for me, there's not a lot to talk about on this slide, but I'm happy towards the bottom of the page I talk about the golf fund. Many of you know golf is a big challenge for us. Our golf revenues are actually down a little bit in the first quarter of this year compared to last year. I will note that the $40,000 budgeted in capital for the golf fund will not be spent this year because we spent it last year. So if everything works equal, or if everything stays according to budget, we'll end up $40,000 ahead in the golf fund. We have a little bit of wiggle room, more or less, this year in the golf fund.
I think the only thing to add, golf is always a challenge, of course, just because it has, in a cyclical sort of way, it's a particular place that makes that so. But but the numbers can't easily reflect the importance of the golf course for the community and for those building permits that we see.
Absolutely.
And for the property tax base we see growing. You know, there's an association with the golf course that without a doubt that is part of the attractiveness of the town as far as people building, living here and so forth.
I think that's a very important point. I'm glad you made that, and I think that's good for people to hear. Next, let's see. I have this is another list of cash holdings. It just those towards the top of that page, you see the NCCMT POW bill, separation allowance, and police forfeiture. Those are really restricted funds that can only be used for special purposes. And then we have some money with SunTrust and with the Black Mountain Savings as well. The bulk of our money is with the North Carolina Capital Management Trust out of Raleigh. Towards the bottom there, you have your debt schedule. We just paid off the Lakeview pool debt in mid-July. So we really only have 4 debts remaining right now. I think when I started, or shortly after I started, I think the town had 11 total debts. Is that right?
14. Yeah, I think it was 14. I think it's gone from 14 debts to 4.
Well, it's gone down considerably, right? So that's been great for the town. On this last page here, I have sort of a summary of some of our capital projects that are ongoing. Like the middle one, the Riverwalk Greenway, that's by far our biggest one. That I think the grant funding is going to be $2,150,000, and we will pay 20% of that, which will be $430,000. Yes, and we plan on doing that over 4 or 5 years. Right now, the budget shows $230,000. We've already made our first $80,000 contribution, and so really, and I think we're going to get cooking on that thing again soon. We could spend another. The town will be spending close to $400,000 on the next little section, and we'll get back $320,000 from the DOT. We've already put in our $80,000 contribution. Another one that Matt talked about briefly earlier was the Tomahawk Stream, and after this meeting, those numbers will change because in effect you'll be reducing that budget down to $92,150, and we'll be giving some of those revenues to date back to the general fund. So the revenues to date will also show $92,150. But that is about all I have at this point, I think. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, I really want to reiterate what Larry talked about. If any of the board members or really any of the public have any questions about the town's finances, I'm more than happy to talk to you about them.
I do think it might be worth going back to the unassigned fund balance, because without going out into the weeds too far on it.
Right.
The unassigned fund balance.
Well, I was going to talk about that more, and I think, Angela, did they get the 2 handouts on page 15 and 17?
You have
right. But for the sake of the public,
yeah,
let's go back to that.
Okay.
Because we have a policy that we are at 30.
We are at 30.
We have a 30% policy. The policy is 30% of unassigned fund balance, and unassigned fund balance is the portion of the fund balance that hasn't been designated, it hasn't been set aside for capital projects, so it is absolutely available.
And it doesn't have restrictions placed on it.
No restrictions whatsoever.
There's state money that's restricted.
So it's absolutely available, yes. And in our world, and you may not be able to, you might be able to answer this off the top of your head, but we're going back to Travis's comment about numbers, the number of months of operating funds. And you have to go, that's maybe not an odd thing to look at, but it may not the appropriate measuring stick, but I think it's a good one for the public. And so, because we may need those funds not just for operating, in the case of emergency, for operating purposes, but we might need those funds for a true emergency of a cataclysmic nature. That may be just a one-time expenditure. And so, for that reason, that that benchmark's very important, and I think what you were trying to get at before, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that unassigned fund balance it's a narrower target. It's truly money that, granted, the board could meet and unrestrict some funds and that sort of thing that they've restricted in prior years, but that gets difficult. And these funds that our 30% number is absolutely unrestricted, unset aside monies, and so that's just good for the public to know.
And I think Dean would agree that communities that we kind of compare ourselves to, I know that Travis has shown all the towns in the 2,500 to 10,000 range. We kind of have a smaller group that we consider, the levels of service and the size of the community. We're right there with those communities, but we're average with those. We're not under average.
That's right, and that's important for the public to know. It's not like we're sitting on piles of cash and for whatever reason, motivation that might.
Well, that
have for doing that.
That 8%, the 8% of the LGC, that is the floor. That's where
that's like what Travis just said. It was 1 month.
That's
I think the state actually would send you a letter if you got down to like 15%,
right?
Because they would say you guys are in danger.
Right.
So now that letter is based on available fund balance, and this gets a little confusing, but they're fairly similar. But no, that's an excellent point, and. I could go on a long time about fund balance if people want to hear it, but I'm not seeing a lot of agreement there. But no, it's an excellent point.
Basically, Dean, what you're saying is we're not sitting on tons of cash and the town is falling down around us because we're just sitting on the money.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable if those numbers were in the low 40%. Yeah. The unassigned fund balance that we have at 35 right now. Now, it's not in the danger zone or anything, but it's, yeah.
Well, as Matt said, we're with our peers.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean.
Next, we have a revision of the Recreation and Parks Master Plan. Casey Connor.
Yeah, well, if there's questions for Casey, but let me go over because you approved this master plan in 2004, and this is a revision of that. Let me go over some of the highlights of the revisions, and we'll answer together any questions that there are. But in general, we changed the name of Recreation Park to Veterans Park, so it updates that. It updates. It has a needs assessment that, if you recall, we did a few years ago. It includes the needs assessment in the update. It updates maps and updates some strategic planning. So we have, I think, Angela and I were talking. I think it's online now. The 2000 or the unrevised version is online now. We'll update it with the new version. But this is what this is designed to do is to continue with the master plan process so that we can work on getting accreditation for the department. We would be I think, Casey, you correct me if I'm wrong, we'd be the smallest department, at least in North Carolina, would be one of the smallest departments that's been accredited when we get this done. So we're nearing the end of that process, and updating this plan as we move forward is part of that. And also for grant opportunities, we did not receive the Part F grant for this year, but we'll reapply again next year. And having master plans updated is part of what they review when they do those. So these changes were to keep it up to date with community input and with obviously words like with the names of parks and the CIP from the current year, those sorts of information that needs to be updated to keep the master plan current.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the revised Recreation and Parks Master Plan?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do we have any discussion or questions?
When does this cycle back around again, as needed, or what?
How often do we do this, Casey?
Typically about every 3 years.
Okay. So you get a reprieve for 3 years.
Any questions? All right, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. D, resolution to support matching funds for Tomahawk Branch Stream Restoration Project Phase 2.
Right, so this is, so as we discussed in the consent agenda, where we were doing some amendments to the capital project fund as money had, as money was not expended in that first phase, then we did a budget amendment to put it back into the general fund. Now we're going to ask for a resolution to support matching funds in the, I think last year we had 73.5 as our matching funds. This year we're going to I think it's at $74,000. We have a grant with the state to carry that out. So that's our half. We budgeted that, a portion of that, plus with the money coming back in, we would ask that we move the project forward. It's basically the same premise for the project. It's stream bank restoration. It will start at kind of right there where you enter the golf course off of Hiawassee and work its way. There'll be some different design elements. I think Dean would agree that we'll have, because of the field of play and where it is, there's going to be some different design elements. But we'll continue the stream bank restoration, and we'll go as far as the money will allow us to go. We'd like to continue this project through the golf course, and that's what this resolution says, that we'll again do what we did last year, which is match the money.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion?
When will you start on that?
I think
not now.
no. I think we'll. We're still. I think, Jessica, we have to. We wait till. I think we're not awarded this until January. So, so we do have. We'll have to get permits. If I would guess, I would say it'd be the same way it was last year, where it's going to be late February, early March when the work is done. Which really, even though it starts to creep into when play begins, is the best time to do the work. And so I know we like to do all the golf course work in a 6-week window when it's snowy, but the best time actually to have this be the most effective is when it goes into March and a little bit of April, frankly.
Matt, if you can explain what the reasoning is behind it,
Sure.
why we're doing this,
Okay,
and how it relates to stormwater control.
Yeah, so we, if you all recall, I think in 2009 there was a stormwater master plan that was created that McGill engineers, McGill and Associates, put together for us, and this is one of the areas they highlighted was the water quality in the Swananoa River. It's an impaired stream. There's damage to the golf course. There's damage to the stream, to Lake Tomahawk, and then as it flows into the Swananoa. So this is an effort to mitigate that and to work our way back through the golf course. There's a variety of issues. We tried to tackle what we thought was some of the worst issues at first, which is what you see around the maintenance shed and some of that area. But there's areas all through the golf course, and as that stream comes into Lake Tomahawk and then goes into the Swananoa River, we're hoping to improve the water quality, to limit erosion, and help some of the stormwater as it moves through town, especially into the river and through those neighborhoods that are right there, coming off of Cragmont and going through that area. So that's one of the areas that was highlighted in that master plan, and we're carrying that forward. And it's also, and frankly, it's a project that the state has highlighted as something that they've emphasized with grant money, and so it does. One of the benefits is that we are able to receive grant money for this project and get more bang for our buck. A little involving the project. They've come out. They've highlighted the work that we've done. They've been really pleased with the effort, and so it is a project that also is eligible for grant money, and that has made it desirable for us.
All righty. Do I hear a motion to approve R17-606 as presented? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Communication from staff. Mr. Sneed? Call for public hearing. There is none.
There is no public hearing, but there should be a call for a public hearing. We had to add that, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay. We had to add that last week. It's, so it's a, and I'll read it off to you. It's a call for public hearing that authorizes the town of Black Mountain to file an application for approval of financing. This is in association with the local government commission requirements in terms of purchasing the foam and fabric building. That's what this public hearing regards. And this is the call, so the public hearing will actually be heard in January.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 5-0. Now, communications from Mr. Sneed.
Jessica will get nervous when I mention this. But Jessica and I did meet with the council for the Appalachian, Southern Appalachian Conservancy. As this board knows, Mary Hemphill left a piece of property to the Conservancy to be developed for a public park. A lot of logistics to be worked out. We initiated talks this morning on how that happens. This time next month, we'll probably have a fairly detailed report as to what's going on with that project.
The only thing that I would add, and I think you all know this, but I'd like for hopefully the public would be aware of this too. You know, we had the town of Black Mountain had applied for an economic development grant through Land to Sky, and there were a lot of partners. But it's been over a year ago. But it was awarded in December. This is to develop the Black Mountain Commerce Park and to help recruit the industry known as Avatum, which is a biotech industry. It's going to create 551 jobs. It'll be right off the access road off of Blue Ridge Road. We'll move that project forward. We had a meeting this morning, and I thought it was productive, and we're looking at a timeline that Larry, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that by the end of February, or by the end of 2018, this will be the infrastructure will be in place, which is really what our responsibility is the infrastructure, the water line for the project, and so that should be in place by the end of the year, and they're ready to ramp up their efforts and begin manufacturing, and we're excited about having additional jobs in the area, and it was a long wait for the grant and a lot of work from a lot of people to get it accomplished, and a lot of effort from elected officials, and so I'm certainly appreciative that we're able to keep going forward with this project. And that's all that I have.
Okay. Communication from the board.
The only thing I would add to what Matt had to say is that we'll see if we can get Erica Anderson, who is the planner, who is responsible. She's the economic development person at Land to Sky, but she was the grant writer.
And she's going to administer the grant.
And she's going to administer it and so forth. We're the contracting party for water and sewer, but to see if she can join us at the January meeting to give us just a little more detailed time frame. I think it's very important, and I think the rest of the board would agree that the community is well aware of the time frames for, generally speaking, the time frames as to how things will unfold, and so there's no surprises nor misunderstandings of how the project will unfold. A good bit will start happening March or April, in that ballpark, and wind up. The road, for instance, will be probably 3 months worth of work by DOT, and then the water and sewer for MSD, and for us, generally speaking, 9 months. And we're kind of looking at that end of March, April time period to start the whole process. But it is pretty exciting. 550 plus jobs, so it's a great thing for the county and for the Shenandoah Valley. And the only other thing I would add is this was just an unprovoked comment and appreciation of what a good job that Jamie, your crew, had done. We're expecting 1 inch of snow and got 12, so everybody responded well. And the person that spoke to me just said, "Hey, let the crew know what a good job they did," because it was a little bit to keep up with and a surprise as well. So we appreciate it. And pass that along to all your folks. I know they worked hard.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank you folks for coming out this evening. I would also like to further thank Alderman Stone, Mayor Collins, and Alderman Carnegie on their swearing in this evening. And Jeremy, you got a lot ahead of you. Hit the ground running. I'm sure that you'll do an excellent job. For the next 2 years, I'll be here to help out any way I can with the rest of this board. Truly appreciate the confidence that this board has given me by asking me to remain on for the next 2 years. Took a lot of arm twisting, I tell you that, because I'm retiring at the end of the year professionally, and I have plans to just kind of fade off into the sunset, but there are a lot of good things happening in this town that I still want to be a part of, and I thank you folks for allowing me that opportunity. I also get to be in a parade for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carlos, for your willingness to serve, and congratulations to Ryan and Jeremy, and Maggie, thanks for your willingness to serve as vice mayor. And with that, unless there's anything else.
Can I, Mayor, if I can
Yes,
just say
sir.
one thing? Just being the end of the year, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming tonight, and also happy holidays and happy new year. I know that we as a board and a town are very excited to have a new board here tonight. Going into the new year, we look forward to facing these challenges, working with you on that, putting aside some of the hard feelings from this past election and moving forward on doing the work that we need to do. I'm thrilled to have Carlos and Jeremy up here bringing fresh ideas and new energy to this board, and look forward to continuing to working with Maggie and Larry and Don. And just want to say thank you to everybody for this opportunity, and that we are going to work our best to make you proud.
Anything else? Merry Christmas, everybody. Meeting adjourned.